to beyoungministry.blogspot.com and to the Be Young Ministry YouTube channel. Today we continue in our study of the Gospel according to John, chapter 18, verse 39 through chapter 19, verse 3, which reads, "But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the King of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they slapped him in the face. That's John chapter 18, verses 39 through chapter 19, verse 3. We return to the trial of the Lord Jesus. Between John chapter 18, verse 38 and John chapter 18, verse 39, Pilate sends the Lord Jesus to Herod Antipas, who sees Jesus and thinks his trial is a joke. Herod and those with him mock the Lord Jesus and send him back to Pilate. Now, this is not recorded in John's gospel. It's recorded in the other gospels. According to verse 39 of John chapter 18, the Lord Jesus is once again before Pontius Pilate, who is trying to hold on to some kind of a clear conscience. Even though he tirelessly tries to, Pilate fails to get the Lord Jesus off the hook with the religious leaders of Israel. I'm glad that one of the most powerful men on the earth at that time was subject to God's will. The sovereignty of God will always win the day, and aren't you glad? Today, nothing will come into our lives until after it has come through the purview of God's will for us. I would hate to think of how life would be if I didn't have the safety net of God's undeterred will in my life. I like what James Stewart once said, quote, "Behind Calvary's cross is the throne of heaven." Behind Calvary's cross is the throne of heaven. In verse 39, Pilate says, "But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the King of the Jews?" Pilate thought he had a solution that might work. He really wanted to help the Lord Jesus. According to verse 40, the people, motivated by the Sanhedrin, cried out, "Give us Barabbas." Of course, Barabbas was a notorious troublemaker. I find it interesting that the name Barabbas appears nowhere else in the New Testament, but in this context in the four Gospels. And no information about his previous or subsequent life is given. His name means Son of the Father. Think of it. The real Son of the Father came to earth to take the place of a man whose name means Son of the Father, to take his place so that all of mankind could become sons and daughters of the Father. Of course, it's our choice, isn't it, whether to believe or not. In verse 1 of chapter 19, we read, "Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged." Pilate had already established that the Lord Jesus was not guilty of anything. This flogging is a desperate effort by Pilate to do something short of execution to satisfy the bloodlust of this crowd led by the religious leaders. The Roman flog consisted of a short wooden handle, like about a half of a baseball bat, to which several leather thongs were attached, and the ends of the thongs were fitted with sharpened pieces of lead, sharpened pieces of brass and of bone. And the body was then stretched on a flat table or tied by the wrists to a post or suspended from a ceiling so that the body was taut and the feet didn't touch the ground. Whatever the posture chosen, the person was then lashed until his body was ripped and shredded. When they finished with the Lord Jesus, he looked like a piece of hamburger meat. Pilate wanted the Lord Jesus off his hands. He didn't want to kill him for his own conscience' sake and his own sense of justice. And because he hated to do what the Jews wanted him to do, he had a difficult decision. He was trapped, you might say. If they, the Jewish people, riot, he's finished as the Roman leader of the area. To make it worse, the soldiers, the servants of the king, in verses 2 and 3, twisted together a crown of thorns, put it on the head of the Lord Jesus, crushed it down on his skull. They put a purple robe on him, some kind of a faded red Roman robe that was now purple because it was faded by the sun. Then just before they humiliated the Lord Jesus by slapping him in the face, they all got around him and said, "Hail, King of the Jews." The humiliation. Irony of all ironies is these Roman soldiers were doing this to the King of Kings. These soldiers and this thug known as Barabbas represent every sinner ever to walk the face of the planet Earth. When I look at the story, I conclude, I am these soldiers. I am Barabbas. The Lord Jesus took my place so that I could become the Son of the Father and the servant of the King. My friends, I trust this study is helping you in your walk with the Lord. If I can be of further assistance to you, feel free to shoot me an email at beyoungministry@gmail.com. Hey, have a great day.